All right, so the Mariners are reportedly set to make a pitch to Roki Sasaki once he's posted this winter. Plus, they're apparently keeping an eye on a former top prospect out on the free agent market. That and more coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. This is Hunting Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we got a lot to talk about on today's show. We're going to be talking about Roki Sasaki. We're going to be talking about this former top prospect, free agent the Mariners have been linked to by the guy that broke the Randy Arozarena trade. So that's pretty interesting. We also have this article from Daniel Kramer, his takeaways from the GM meetings, which has some stuff about Mitch Haniger, Mitch Garver, Justin Turner. So we'll get into that a little later on. But before we do that, shout out to our title sponsor today, FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. All you have to do is click the link in the description of this episode. So we talked a lot about Roki Sasaki on Monday's episode. We got a ton of questions about him. So if you watch that episode, you guys know how we feel about that. But if you missed it, Roki Sasaki, Japanese starting pitching phenom, he's about to get posted. He's going to make his way to the majors a lot sooner than a lot of people expected. And because he's going to get posted a lot sooner than people expected, he is basically an international free agent, which means that he is subject to just bonus pool money, which means that once he signs with a team, he's going to be making the league minimum like any other prospect in Major League Baseball, which is obviously enticing to not just the Mariners, who obviously have their own budget restrictions, self-imposed budget restrictions, but any team in Major League Baseball. So it really is just the bare minimum to be involved here. All 30 MLB teams should be involved in Sasaki's market to some degree. But we do have confirmation here, which is exciting nonetheless, that the Mariners are going to prepare a recruiting pitch to Sasaki's camp once he is posted, per industry sources to Adam Jude of the Seattle Times. So it was reported that development is important to Sasaki, and a smaller market might be important to Sasaki as well. I'm still firmly in the camp that he's going to land with the Dodgers and the Padres, but there is that report. We acknowledged that on Monday. So who knows? Maybe. And look, when it comes to development, no team has been better at pitching development than the Seattle Mariners over the last few years. I mean, they have arguably the best rotation in baseball, and 4 of those 5 guys are homegrown. So right there, you have all the proof of concept you really need to Sasaki that, hey, we can get the most out of you here in Seattle. Plus, obviously, there's the ballpark, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's the complete opposite conversation that we have about hitters in Seattle. It's just, there's tiers to this, right? And the top tier is the Dodgers and the Padres. Mm-hmm. And until I see more that contradicts that, I'm just going to assume that he's going to LA or San Diego, but this is exciting nonetheless. And like we talked about, Colby, it was very important that the Mariners at least get this out in the public. Like, yeah, they are going to try for Sasaki.
Yeah. The Mariners are a team that largely adds players via trade. And while that's fun and exciting, we don't hear about most of the work that goes on with trades and all that. So we don't know, like it's a lot harder to sit here and be like, they're not even trying when, they're out there making it publicly known that they're talking to this free agent and this free agent and this free agent. Like, they're not going to make those same kind of statements about trades, right? They're not going to sabotage themselves. And we talked about, how important it is to buy a little goodwill. You've already shot yourself in the foot multiple times this winter because signing Juan Soto, isn't a good strategy and all that garbage. We're not going to pay for free agent hitters. That's not a good strategy. All the garbage, even going back to last year, the 54%, blah, blah, blah. Like, they're really bad at this. One way that you can kind of, buy yourself a little bit of credit in the fan base is by not sitting on your hands when there is a potentially generational talent coming over to the majors because he happens to play a position that you feel pretty good about your guys. Like you don't feel like it'd be really easy for them to be like, we have our 5 starters. It's not even worth our time.
Yeah, you don't want another situation like last year when Jeff Passan reported that the Mariners balked at the money on Ohtani. Like you can't let that happen again.
No, I mean, in particular, when a guy's not going to cost you any money, but
yeah.
So, I mean, good for them getting this out there early in the process too. Again, we'll see if Sasaki even takes a meeting with the Mariners. I would assume so. I don't see why he wouldn't hear them out. But this is not that the Mariners are going to talk to him. This is not that they have a meeting set up. Not that they could say that right now because he hasn't been posted yet. I'm sure there's some kind of tampering concerns there. But yeah, I mean, like we talked about this, like just in terms of like who has the best sales pitch for Sasaki, if we assume that everything that's been reported by one guy is accurate,
but that one guy being a reporter from Japan should say that. Sure.
Like it's not like, some random Twitter account. It's like a legit.
Yeah. And he's like a credible writer.
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah.
Yeah. So like, but it's just him, and everybody else in the game is saying like, it's the Dodgers. So like it's already basically done. It's the Dodgers. So yeah, you have to weigh that a little bit, but if we're just talking about like, hey, here's the playing field's level, here's what he wants. The Mariners have one of the best pitches that they can make of any of the other 30 teams in baseball. My only concern, and the only reason I'm not really buying into this, getting super hyped about the possibility, is that what the Mariners can't do is say, we have Shohei Ohtani and we just won the World Series.
Yeah. We also have Yamamoto.
Yeah. That's a great pitch.
Yeah.
And while the Mariners can say like, yeah, we're really good at pitching development. And hey, you know what? Our guys stay healthy. The Dodgers seem to have a problem keeping their guys healthy. Yep. We don't. So not
and look what we've done for Brian Wu and Bryce Miller and George Kirby and Logan Gilbert. Yeah.
We know how to, bring young arms along without, injuring them in the long term and all that stuff. We don't push guys beyond what they're capable of, blah, 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 the history, all that. You guys know the pitch by now, the ballpark, the
history with Japanese players, all that, all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. And so, and so while, you don't have Ohtani, you do have Ichiro, who might be able to help you out here. You do have Julio, who might be able to help you out here. You do have, Iwakuma, who's still involved with the organization. So you do have a good pitch. If the playing field was level, you have a good pitch. I don't think it is. I think it's already tilted heavily towards the Dodgers with a slight possibility the Padres can get involved here. But again, if we just take the reporter at his word that, a smaller market, not small, but smaller market, key on development and all that, then Seattle would be a fantastic pitch to make him. But
again, like we talked about that quote from that article, from Jim Allen's article, it comes from a source close to Sasaki, right? And it says, we prefer that he play in a smaller market, something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but that sounds like an agent
or
something
parent.
Like that. Maybe, right? But it's like, so that's kind of interesting, right?
Just a random family member.
It's like his cousin.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. Ultimately, we don't know what Sasaki wants. We'll see if he takes the meeting with the Mariners. We'll see if Seattle can even make a dent in what seems like a foregone conclusion. But again, the fact that they're at least, they're going to make the effort, and they've already made that effort publicly known that they're going to do this. It's
exciting because it gives us something to keep an eye on here. However long this is going to take.
Right, and while you don't want to give them like credit for doing the bare minimum on this, which is what they're doing by trying to have a meeting with him. It's more of a step than they took with the Shohei Ohtani last year. It's more of a step they're willing to take than with Juan Soto this year. Yeah. So, I mean,
obviously those are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hundreds of millions of dollars conversations.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not giving them too much credit, but like, look, this is probably the second best player on the free agent market. The Mariners are interested, and they're telling us they're interested, despite the fact that this guy plays a position where the Mariners really don't need to pour a ton of resources into. Not that they would have to get Sasaki. Yes, I know, blah, 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 money.
Yeah.
Of course, they only go after the good player when he's cheap.
Right. Yeah. We all get
your
it.
jokes are all hilarious. We've never heard any of them. Congratulations.
Yeah. Like we talked about on Monday, though, there's a possibility of a 6-man rotation, or this does, make you feel a bit more comfortable about trading, one of your starters. Because again, the ceiling for Sasaki is sky high. This dude has insane stuff, right? Yeah. The only concern here is he has had some injury issues in the past, and he's only thrown a career high of 129 and a third innings in a season. And obviously the workload is a lot more demanding in Major League Baseball for starting pitchers than it is in Japan.
Once a week in Japan, once every 5 days in Major League Baseball.
And that's why, a 6-man rotation could be the most beneficial route here for both the Mariners and Sasaki. And that might be appealing to Sasaki as well, especially if he's going 6-man rotation and I got these 5 guys that I'm pitching alongside. That sounds fun.
Sure. I mean, I think the Dodgers would probably be really open to a 6-man rotation too, since they can't keep their guys healthy.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
It's like I said, it's not going to be a problem with the sales pitch. It's just that you're pitching against the Dodgers, which is a team that reportedly he's wanted to pitch for the last, pre-Ohtani signing, he's wanted to be a Dodger. So you're just up against it. You're not starting off on, like I said, you're not starting off on a level playing field. You have to scale a mountain. The Dodgers are already at the top of the mountain. So so
we'll
see what happens.
I would be surprised if they landed him, but I'm open-minded to the possibility here. Cause again, they have a very strong pitch that they can make on a bunch of different angles. So I think it's real. I think the possibility is real. I just, at the end of the day, I feel very confident that he's going to be a Dodger or a Padre. Possibility
is real. I win the lottery tomorrow and you guys never hear from me again, but
sure.
Is that real?
But yeah, it gives us something fun to talk about here for the next however many weeks until this is all resolved.
You know what they say, you can't win the lottery if you don't play.
# not gambling advice.
If you have a gambling addiction.
Man, I wish we had FanDuel coming up here on the ad read, but that's not until the second segment. So we're going to be getting into another interesting report involving the Mariners and involving a former top prospect here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by SelectQuote. The World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/LOCKEDON today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. So we just talked about Roki Sasaki, but that is not the only player the Mariners have been linked to today in the media. Francis Romero, who you might remember broke the Randy Arozarena trade. He was the first one to have that when the Mariners swung the deal for Arozarena. He's reporting that Yoan Moncada, former top prospect of the Red Sox, the big piece traded to the White Sox in the Chris Sale deal from Boston, is generating interest in the free agent market. And more than 5 MLB teams are interested in Moncada. And among those teams that have monitored him are the Blue Jays, Yankees, and your Seattle Mariners. So again, Moncada, former #1 prospect in all of baseball. He was the prize of the Chris Sale deal. He's had some pretty good seasons, but he's dealt with injuries, and he just had his club option declined by the White Sox after a year in which he only played 12 games. He had an adductor strain that had put him out for pretty much the entire season. He was good in those 12 games, but in 2023, he was basically a league average bat, 260, 305, 425, with 11 homers, 40 ribs. 2022, he was just flat out bad, 76 WRC plus in 104 games. 2021, he was actually really good. 120 WRC plus, 263, 375, 412. 2020, the shortened COVID season, 94 WRC plus. And then 2019, he was amazing. 315, 367, 548. That's a 139 WRC plus with 25 homers in his age 24 season. But that was a long time ago. And a lot of stuff has happened, and he's gotten banged up along the way here. So he's 29 years old now, switch hitter, obviously. It's a pretty swing from the left side. It's a really interesting play here, but the risk here is he's Luis Arias. So what do you think about the Moncada possibility here, Colby?
I think he's interesting. Like you said, he's had a couple of really good seasons, and he's had a couple of bad seasons. He's battled injuries off and on throughout his entire career, and typically they're pretty serious injuries. So Moncada is interesting again at the right price. If you're talking, $1.5-2 million with some incentives, fine. Like that's totally fine. That's worth the risk. If you're talking like $8 to $10 million, no. If you're talking about a guy who's going to cost more than Josh Rojas, I'm probably out. I'm not really interested in that idea. I don't think he's going to be. But I do understand why the Mariners would want to take a look and just be like, hey, let's take a shot here. Because $1.5 million or $2 million, it's not that big of a gamble to take, even for the Mariners. It's really not that big of a gamble. And if you do hit on this guy, if you do get maybe not 2019, but can you get 2021 Yoan Moncada, like the 120 WRC plus with fringe average defense? Can you get that from a switch hitting third baseman?
He was a 4-1 player that year.
Yeah, like if you get that, like think about guys like Jeimer Candelario, right? Like the Nationals take a shot on Candelario. Was it the Nationals who signed him?
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Really good. And they flipped him. They end up flipping him at the deadline. He gets a big contract. Like that's the shot you're taking here, right? Is that like, hey, this guy who has a bit of a track record, has produced at the big league level, has some obvious red flags, but we can get him super cheap. Let's take the shot and see what happens. That's what you're kind of doing. And do you want to do that if you're the Mariners? Like if you're a Mariners fan, like, no, you'd probably rather they just go get Alex Bregman and go get Christian Walker and all that. But we have to live in the reality that we, currently reside in. And is that the Mariners are probably going to have to take a shot like this on somebody in their lineup this year, unfortunately. But that's the reality. And Moncada, decent guy to take that shot on because there is track record there. There is, prospect status there. Like, and there is the path to him being an everyday player and third base not being a black hole for you. And if you can get, third base figured out for $2 million, do you have more money to spend at first base and second base and DH? Yeah, in theory, you do.
So it's an interesting shot to take. I wouldn't be excited, right? But, I'd be intrigued and, see what they have planned for him. So we'll see if anything comes of that. Again, they might have just checked in, been like, hey, what's up? And, maybe they were looking at a minor league deal or whatever, like you said, and the interest just kind of died there. Or, maybe they're just keeping an eye on him and seeing where things go.
Yeah, you actually want the Mariners to be making calls like this to just about every player that makes sense for them. Just check in. Why not? Yeah. You never know what can happen.
Yeah, due diligence, all that good stuff. So, again, we'll see if anything comes from it. All right, so let's get into this Daniel Kramer article that he posted on MLB.com yesterday. His takeaways from the GM meetings. Got some interesting information in there about Justin Turner, Mitch Garver, Mitch Haniger. We'll go over that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. So yesterday, Daniel Kramer, Mariners reporter for MLB.com, posted his takeaways from the GM meetings that happened this past week with some quotes, some new quotes that we haven't seen yet from Justin Hollander, Mariners general manager. So let's go over those. First, let's talk about what he had to say regarding Justin Turner. Hollander said, quote, "We've already had discussions with JT and reiterated interest that we expressed at the end of the season. He's a player that connected with a lot of different parts of our clubhouse and really did make a connection with our team, with our coaches, and with our front office. We'd love to have JT back." So just reiterating what they've already said and what we already knew, that they would like to bring Turner back. And Turner has said that he would be interested in coming back as well, and he absolutely wants to play in his age 40 season. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, a lot of players came out after the season was over and said, like, we really like Justin, and we feel that if Justin was here the whole season, we would have been in a better spot. So seems like there's quite a bit of interest in bringing back Justin Turner. And then the quote that's been really making the rounds here, and just the note here from Daniel Kramer that's been making the rounds here, is about both Mitch Haniger and Mitch Garver. "We anticipate both those guys bouncing back and being better than they were this year." Both those guys, huh? Mitch Garver, sure. Yeah, like I can wrap my head around that. Absolutely. And plus, Garver, like we've talked about, he has a defined role on the roster. He's your backup catcher. Man, he's had multiple really good seasons. So yeah, it's feasible that he can bounce back. But Mitch Haniger is also mentioned here.
Well, he's on the roster right now.
He is on the roster right now, Colby. He is. But it does make me a little concerned that because Mitch Haniger is making $17.5 million, that they're just going to keep him on the roster, even though you might get more value out of that $17.5 million by telling him to just go away, because he was literally worth negative value this year. He hurt your team. He was worth negative 0.6 F4. So yeah. So obviously there's that concern that just kind of lingers over your head, because John Stanton's calling the shots, right? And is he forcing this front office to keep a player who doesn't help them at all on the roster just because he's making money? Maybe. It's not out of the question. So yeah, so that quote, while it's probably just GM speak, it does send up, signals a little bit.
No,
it doesn't. I know. All right.
It's November 13th. Like he's not going to be like it send up signals. They're like, yeah, Mitch Haniger sucks, but we got to keep him on the roster because guaranteed money and all. Like, oh, cool. That's the level of transparency I can get behind. I mean, it sucks to like call out Mitch publicly like that, but like, yeah, that's the truth. Mitch Haniger is cooked. We all know it.
Yeah.
He's not going to say that. Of course, he's not going to.
Sure.
Say that.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
This is nothing burger. Like,
sure.
Of course, he's going to say it. These guys are making $30 million. We know Garver is almost certainly going to be back next year. Although, again, if they can trade him, like it's not like they're like, oh no, we really think Garver is going to be good next year, and then like they get offered something decent for him. It's not like they're going to be like, nope, we really think Garver is going to be really good. Like, no, they'll trade him if the right deal comes along. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, until Haniger's on the opening day roster, I really don't care if he's around. We've always known that the possibility that John Stanton wouldn't just eat that money and allow the front office to replace Haniger with, what's a nice way to say this, a major league player. Like, yeah, we've always known that was a possibility. So the fact that, 4.5 months before opening day, Justin Hollander saying we expect Mitch Haniger to be better than he was last year, and Mitch Garver. Well, yeah, they couldn't be much worse now, could they? So,
especially Garver.
Yeah, just like no, I couldn't care less about that comment.
That's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Tidy Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Tidy Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.